Well, here's one of the dots to connect, and that's the danger from existing nuclear weapons, the 27,000 nuclear weapons that exist in the world. And you've been very forceful in urging those countries that still have these weapons to pick up the pace, to get rid of these weapons. How do you see the progress on disarmament, and what do you see the connection being between that and convincing other countries not to acquire these weapons?
Well, I think a very clear connection, Joe. Unless we create the environment that nuclear weapons are or is a historical accident from which we are trying to extricate ourselves as soon as we can, we will continue to have this cynical environment that all the guys in the minor league, in case they feel insecure, they're trying to join the major league. And that's the reality. It has nothing to do with ideology. I would like to emulate the big boys if I have a security problem. And if the big boys continue to rely on nuclear weapons, why shouldn't I? We still have, so the pace of, that environment is a key that we need to change. And obviously, if you still have 27,000 warheads in existence, 15 years after the end of the Cold War, if you're still operating on a half an hour trigger alert between you and Russia, if we still do not have a CTBT, at the very least, again, one of the proposals, but let's have a moratorium of 10 years until we get the CTBT into force. Nobody is testing now. Nobody, I heard saying they are going to test. Why can't we have, again, a word of honor that for the next 10 years we are not going to test?
Right.
Same with cutoff. Why can't we have, again, a moratorium on cutoff? If we are not able to move forward with the speed we want on the legal issues, at least there are a lot of practical measures that we can take. I think if we do some of that, if the weapon state takes some of these measures, they will have the moral authority, Joe, to go hard after all those who are the wannabes, because the message would be, this is not the way we go. Nuclear weapon is a state of transition. We want to reverse as we commit ourselves under the Non-Proliferation Treaty to a world free from nuclear weapons. So we are not going to allow any more country to develop nuclear weapons, because that could be the beginning of the end for our survival. But with all this, we need to continue to work on an alternative system to nuclear deterrence. We talk about nuclear disarmament. I haven't seen really much work, in civil society, in academia, among scientists. What is the alternative system of collective security that is going to replace nuclear deterrence? Lots we can think about it, but there's lots, as I said, we need to do and need to do it fast.
Terrific. Last question, and this is the tough one. The common view in our country is what the administration is now saying, telling us about Iraq, that we all got it wrong, that everyone thought there were weapons there, and we were all mistaken. But you didn't get it wrong. You were there with the inspectors for 3.5 months. You told the Security Council in January of 2003 that you could not find evidence of a nuclear weapons program. You said in March of 2003 that the aluminum tubes, the centrifuge motors, the document that said that Iraq was importing uranium from Niger was a forgery. None of the evidence held up. You said you'd gone to the sites, the suspect sites, and found no evidence. Tell us a little bit about that moment, those inspections, and how do you feel now when you hear people saying everyone got it wrong?
Well, first of all, I'm absolutely relieved that we did not get it wrong. Secondly, I'm not God, and my wife keeps reminding me that I'm not.
Don't tell my wife that, please.
I simply was reading the data we were getting. I simply was relying on the expert advice from the people on the ground. And we haven't seen before the war any indication that there was any revival of the weapon program. I kept saying that. I think we're making progress. I remember my last statement to General Security Council when I said I needed 3 more months. And I remember I said, clearly, this would be an investment in peace. But it didn't work that way. But at least my conscience is clear that I did not send any wrong message, that could point to a revival of that weapon program.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. We're now going to open it up.
I would like to ask you if you could bring us up to date and give us your assessment of the information being provided by the Iranian opposition and your ability to arrive promptly at the suspected sites, including Lavazan 2, and determining whether or not the suspected activities are going on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for your kind words. In brief, we are making good progress in Iran. We do receive a lot of information, but we have to verify the authenticity of the information. As Joe just mentioned about Iraq, I mean, there was a lot of misinformation about Iraq, so we cannot just take any information we get for granted. I should say today, we only have one remaining site we would like to visit in Iran. We visited all the sites that we would like to visit in Iran. So we are making progress. I would hope, as you mentioned, Lavizan, we should be able to go there. But we take all the information very seriously. But we have first to establish the credibility, the authenticity of the information before we move. So the issues that remaining with regard to the past Iran program is trickling down. There are not many. There's still some important issues about the extent of the enrichment program, but we are moving in the right direction. And the earlier Iran would allow us, through transparency measure, to do all what we need, the better, of course, for everybody, including Iran.
Thank you. Next question.
Mohamed ElBaradei, Egyptian television. Congratulations, Dr. Baradei. And as you know, your authority is confined to those countries that signed the NPT. So my first question is, what could be done with other countries that chose not to sign the NPT? And the other thing about Iran, is it perceivable, in your opinion, that the Iranians can cross this line of acquiring nuclear weapons without you, with your monitoring system now in place, being able to know that?
Well, we still have, of course, the 5 weapon states that are outside our remit. We still have India, Pakistan, and Israel that are not part of our jurisdiction. We still have North Korea that decided to walk out. Hopefully they will come back. So we still have 9 countries where we are not in charge, if you like. But we have 180 countries that we are in charge. And as I said, what we need to do is not to increase the number of those who are outside the regime, but to get those who are outside the regime into the regime. We need to get the universality of the regime. And that is difficult. I mean, and the countries who are outside the regime, India, Pakistan, and Israel, are very sui generis cases. I don't think they will come to the NPT, my personal view, through the normal route. You know, so we need to find creative ways to get them in. I think in the case of Israel, they have to come as part of the Middle East nuclear weapon-free zone. I think India, Pakistan are either coming through South Asia, peace agreement, or part of the global arms control regime. However, this is a reality we need to address, that we need to adjust the rules as we go along. We got everybody, I think we can get into the NPT through the normal route. The 3 outsiders, we need to address their security concern and try to find a creative solution to get them into the system. Whether Iran will be able to, or any other country, develop nuclear weapon without us noticing it, well, we can give guarantees, but we do not give 100% assurance. I've always said that. We are part of a system. The more authority we have, the better assurance we can provide. But in addition to verification, we need the compliance, we need the technology, we need to understand why countries are tempted to develop nuclear weapons. I mean, we need to act on the causes. I always ask that question, why I'm not worried today about Finland developing nuclear weapons, for example. Because you don't see the security perception there that drives them into that. Why don't we see that in the European Union, for example? We need to understand always that countries are tempted to develop nuclear weapons because, rightly or wrongly, because they are driven by sense of insecurity or projection of power, what have you. So while we address the symptoms through verification, we need not to forget the causes as why countries are trying to move into certain directions.